Our correspondent Rebecca Ritters is standing by in Lviv. Rebecca, the death toll is not fully clear, but the Ukrainian President Zelensky has said it's tens of thousands of people. And Russia, as we know, is going to intensify its attacks in the east of the country. What more can you tell us?
That's right, Abby. It's hard to imagine how President Zelensky's estimates could be very far off. I mean, if you think about the worst images you've seen in war, the most devastating pictures coming out of any conflict, that is what's happening in Mariupol. Since the beginning of this war, as you just reported, that city has been under constant Russian bombardment. People have been living there without access to food, electricity, communication, and most crucially, without access to any drinking water. People have been in their, we hear, have been in their bunkers almost the entire time. The Ukrainians are defending that city, and that's creating even further bombardment from the Russian side. It's very hard to get news out of Mariupol, but I have spoken to a couple of people who escaped, and they've told me of their harrowing stories of living under that siege. So hard to get out of that city. One doctor I spoke to told me that those scenes, those horrific scenes we've seen in Bucha, once we see what's happening in Mariupol, that'll be Bucha times 10, Bucha times 100, Bucha times 1,000. So it's very hard to imagine that President Zelensky, unfortunately, that his estimates are very far off.
And we know about the millions of internally displaced people like the woman that you were talking about, the doctor. Talk to us about the influx of people moving towards Lviv, where you are.
That's right. I am in Lviv in the west of the country. Now, as you can probably see behind me, I mean, this city is, while there's definitely a tension in the air, the city is under martial law as well. It's definitely far from the scenes that we're seeing in the eastern parts of the country, and therefore has become the relative safety area, the relative area for internally displaced people have found safety here in Lviv. But thousands more now are evacuating the east as the conflict seems to be ramping up there, particularly in the Donbass and the southern regions, the port cities where Mariupol, for example. I was just reporting in the southeast of the country in a city called Dnipro, and also in Zaporizhia, where most people from Mariupol evacuate to. And there were just thousands of people terrified, having no idea where they were going to even go to. You know, we were talking to lots of people who said that the scenes that they'd left behind were just horrific. I spoke to one gentleman at the train station who said that his friends didn't even want to leave Luhansk and Donetsk because they were so upset that they'd already lost everything in the war in 2014, and they just weren't going to do it again. They were going to stick around and defend their cities. He just broke down in tears when he talked about it because, you know, everyone's worried that those scenes that we've seen out of Bucha and that we've seen out of Mariupol, that's going to happen in their homes, in their cities and towns.
Rebecca, we know that Russian troops invaded Ukraine from Russia. They did so from Belarus, and now concern out of Ukraine that Russia may carry out operation from Moldova's breakaway Transnistria region. What more can you tell us about that?
We don't have a lot of information on that, Abby, but what I can tell you is the Ukrainian military said that they are worried that Russia will try and attack from the west through Moldova in an area known as Transnistria. Now, it's been controlled by Russia since the 90s, and they have about 1,500 troops stationed there. They're worried that, of course, Moldova is right next to the port city of Odessa, which is a key target of the Russian military. It's certainly a city that they want to gain control of. So far, the city has spared much bombardment at all, but with the change of direction of the conflict, that city is definitely going to see a ramping up of shelling and bombardment. They're worried that if the soldiers from the west through Moldova could meet soldiers coming from the sea and from the east, and therefore encircle Ukrainian troops that are trying to defend that port city. Now, you know, Russia has denied claims that they're going to do anything like that, but Russia also denied that they were going to invade Ukraine, so their word not holding much weight at this moment.
DW correspondent Rebecca Ritters. Thank you, Rebecca.